Welcome to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where we feature top leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry with your host, Drew Hendricks. Now, let's get started with the show.
Drew Thomas Hendricks here. I'm the host of the Legends Behind the Craft podcast, where I talk with leaders in the wine and craft beverage industry. Past guests of Legends Behind the Craft include Daniel Dow of Dow Vineyards, Paul Mabry of Picks, and James King of King Family Vineyards. If you haven't listened to these yet, be sure to check them out and subscribe. Today's episode is sponsored by Barrels Ahead. At Barrels Ahead, we work with you to implement a one-of-a-kind marketing strategy, one that highlights your authenticity, tells your story, and connects you with your ideal customers. In short, we help wineries and craft beverage producers unlock their story to unleash their revenue. Go to barrelsahead.com today to learn more. I am super excited to talk today with Emily Harrison of Hall Family Wines. As the Vice President of Marketing and Direct Sales, Emily is responsible for the creation and execution of the Hall Family Wines strategic vision by curating the customer journey for customers through all touch points. Emily works to enhance the Hall, Walt, and Baca experience for new customers, as well as deepens the brand's relationships with existing customers. In her role, she manages and oversees the membership, the marketing, the public relations, the e-commerce, and even the shipping departments. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Excited to talk to you. So, Emily, in the pre-show, you're telling me you didn't really start in the wine industry, and it's more recent. Tell me how you got into it.
Sure, yeah. Well, I really got into the wine industry simply because I actually lived in Napa. I ended up marrying a person who grew up here. And so I worked in San Francisco at ad agencies, digital ad agencies. And in 2010, we decided that we were going to move a little bit closer to family. And so we moved to Napa, which was my husband's hometown.
Oh, okay. Is your husband in the wine industry?
He was in the hospitality business and the fine dining business. Yeah. So it was kind of a nice fit for everybody. And I commuted back to the city for a long time because it's not too far to San Francisco.
Sure.
But eventually, when we had kids, I wanted to be a little bit closer. And of course, what's closer to Napa than wine?
Yeah, sounds good. So you're in charge of the strategic vision. I want to actually just dive right into the meat of it and curating the customer's journey through all touch points. Talk to me about that.
Sure. So my role, well, I'll just start with the fact that I started out with Hall as the director of marketing. It's really, focus on marketing. And a few years into my tenure with Hall, we decided that we needed somebody to kind of oversee the entire customer journey, whether that was, starting at the very beginning of your experience where you're searching for a winery to go visit on Google, to coming to the winery, having a great brand experience, and then, signing up for membership, going home, and then all of the touch points that happen as a result of your relationship with your new wine club. So we put me in place to kind of oversee that whole journey across the board. And the Halls really felt that having somebody looking at all of those touch points kind of holistically would really help create continuity and deepen the relationship with the brand.
Sure. What was happening before you started? Like, what was the customer journey like when you started on board?
Yeah, I mean, we were never like totally disconnected. But I think there was a little bit of a disconnection. I think one of the hardest parts for wineries in general is just connecting the offline experience, the in-person experience with what happens when they go home and they have to connect through email or phone calls or their, their wine club shipments. And so we really tightened that up, that kind of link in between leaving the winery and then becoming a lifelong customer. That was really my primary focus, my first couple of years.
How did you go about doing that?
Well, we looked at the process across the board. Actually, from an operations standpoint, we looked at how do people get entered into our system after they leave, and what is the process of their first touch point. So what for us, we want a very high touch experience. We want our members to feel like they're having a one-to-one experience. So we assign them a membership associate. That was happening before me, but we really looked at that experience. What does that welcome call look like? Is the checklist that the membership associate has to go through to make sure that they're telling the member everything that we have to offer? What's their first club shipment look like? What are the communication touch points along the way there? So just really evaluated all of those different steps of the process from leaving the winery to membership.
Kind of making sure that experience that they had at the winery kind of translates and stays fresh. Because now, and that brings up a good point, because one of the bigger challenges, especially destination type wineries like in Napa, where someone comes from New York, they join the club, and they may not make it back to Napa. Maybe in 5 years, maybe not. Maybe that's their one experience. How do you keep that passion with those visitors now that they're back in their own hometown?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a major challenge. So one of the great things about customer acquisition through a winery is that the customer is there. They're having a wonderful time. It's usually very celebratory. The weather's beautiful. The views are beautiful. The wine tastes good. It's this incredible brand moment. And it's usually their first brand moment, as opposed to, I don't know, buying a swimsuit in the Target, shopping center and looking at it and, not feeling so great about it. So like, you've got this really amazing brand moment that you can capture and you can leverage. And so we want to bring them back to that brand moment. We want to, first thing we want to do is talk to them about their experience. How was their experience? How were the wines? Did they take them home? Did they try them? Let's try to keep that brand moment going alive, as long as possible. So we do that through, as I mentioned, the welcome call and kind of really having informed membership associates talking to them. But then also,
so it's an actual physical. So you pick up the phone and call the person. That is so. I wish more wineries did that. I can't. That's great.
Yeah, every member has a membership associate that picks up the phone and calls them to welcome them to membership and just to talk through their experience. So we use Salesforce to take down notes to understand what their experience was like, so that when we talk to them, we can talk from a place of being informed about how their experience went.
Sure.
So another thing that we implemented was triggered emails, like a welcome series that just reminds them of all of the great things. There's beautiful pictures of the vineyard and the tasting room experience and the wines and all of that. And we do for Hall, we do a 3 email welcome series.
I was going to ask you about that. How you set up the sequence?
Yeah, it's over the course of 3 weeks. So we do 1 email a week, just kind of ease people into it. And we suppress all of the other emails, of course, during that welcome series period. So they're just getting kind of the nuggets that we want to give them and really give them a good, strong brand foundation.
That's important. I like that you said you suppress all the other random stuff, because it's weird when you get a nice personalized email and then the next one's this really weird transactional one that is completely detached from that series. So you onboard them nicely. Now, you're in charge of 3 different, the portfolios, Hall, you've got Walt. Is it different? Do you have different sequences, or is there a different methodology between the brands?
Yeah, there is. One of the things that is nice about the brands is that there's a lot of efficiencies, and there are a lot of things that are very similar. So for Hall's the biggest one. We have the most content for Hall. We actually started our welcome series with Hall. So Hall is 3. The other 2 brands have 2 in their welcome series. But they actually do follow very similar, like, email template, and the type of information that we give out is similar across the 3. So we do find some efficiencies. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. But the biggest thing, I think, between the difference of the brands is just the voice, the brand voice that we've crafted. And then, of course, the key messaging.
Sure. So you've got the 3 welcome series, and then how do you continue to nurture the people that have over the course of years and keep that excitement and passion?
There's all kinds of things that we do. Of course, there's social media, which is a great tool to cultivate a community, and that's what we really want our membership group to be. We want our members to feel like they're part of a really amazing community of wine lovers with common interests. So we utilize social, of course, and then we've got emails throughout the year. They've got their 4 quarterly shipments, and so we really try to pick up the phone, at least touch them 4 times a year with like a phone call at the very minimum, 4 times a year. But the quarterly shipments have many communication touch points. There are triggered emails, there are direct emails from membership associates. There's lots of stuff going on. For a while, we were doing virtual like Zoom tastings with the winemaker after each shipment went out. So you got your wine and you could hop on and watch a Zoom. We've pulled that back to about twice a year now, instead of every quarter. But
did you ramp it up during the pandemic when people could visit the winery?
We absolutely ramped it up during the pandemic. And then in social, we started doing our happy hours during the pandemic, which was really fun. We got to have lots of amazing wine lovers come on the happy hour show. And we just live streamed it on Facebook and Instagram. So anybody could tune in. And it was great. We got so many amazing messages from members saying, this made my afternoon. I'm opening a bottle of your wine and watching the show. And I think for a lot of people, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, when nobody was really leaving their house, I think we all saw that big e-com boom in April, where everybody was just terrified to leave their house and they were ordering in wine. We saw, just so many people so grateful that we were able to connect to them, through the internet.
I guess since we're talking about the pandemic, what as we're coming out of it, or we're still in it, but it's evolved over the last 2 years. What lessons have you guys learned in the marketing department that you've pulled out of the pandemic that you're continuing to implement now?
Yeah, I think for our team, it was as for everybody, it was a huge cultural shift. We moved all remote, and we had always been an in-person environment, an in-person office. So that shift alone was a really big deal for our team, and we learned how to work together all remotely, because we were a very collaborative team. We have a pretty large team, and everybody is incredibly talented, and also just kind of contributes in their own unique way, and we all feed off of each other. And we've been together for many years. Our marketing team has quite a tenure. So for us to all of a sudden be separated and now only talking through a screen was a little bit of a shock to our system, but we evolved and we got really good at working that way. And so we're really excited to actually be moving to a hybrid model for work now. So that we can, provide kind of the work-life balance, but then also the getting together and feeling like we're part of a team and getting to collaborate in person, which is also so important. So I think we pulled a ton of great learnings out of that. And I think we also just learned that we can overcome anything. We at Hall in particular, we are just very not afraid of big challenges. And we're also very not afraid to just do something we don't know how to do. Like we just start working on it, start learning about how to do it and put together kind of a playbook. And so the happy hours were a great example of that. Nobody had ever, produced a happy hour show. And we had some really great leaders on that team, and we all came together and over time just improved it and created something cool.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I love the idea of the happy hour. And you talk about your team and all the tenure. And one of the things we were talking about in the pre-show is how you've actually built a in-house agency for this Hall family of wines. Now, talk to me about how you ended up building this agency and how that's different from a marketing department.
Yeah, I don't think we ever really intentionally built an in-house agency. It just kind of evolved into that. As I mentioned, my background wasn't in wine. I was on the agency side for my whole career before Hall. So that was really the only way I knew how to market, was, through the operational system of an agency. So when I started with Hall, they had a marketing department and they had a team. It was about 3 people. And we had a focus on marketing and a focus on e-com. And so our team was really kind of intertwined with the e-com team. We were one and the same for a long time. And it just kind of evolved that way. We started to approach projects from an agency standpoint, looking at key stakeholders as clients, if you will, the way that we work operationally, like the number of projects that we have and how we triage projects and how how we staff projects. Just it comes kind of from an agency model. And then we wanted to do everything in house. We didn't have any agencies, so we just started doing it, and our capabilities just kind of built and built and built up until all of a sudden we really were kind of full service.
Oh, wow. Now, you talk about the triaging. So to bring this into perspective for other wineries that are listening, what are the steps and what are the benefits on kind of taking more, I guess responsibility is not the right word, but more ownership and more, I guess, responsibility over the full circle of the marketing and the development of the site and all the other type of agency things, the ad buys and whatnot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think our team is incredibly effective and efficient at getting things through the door. I'm always amazed at how much we do. And so we have to be really, really organized. The first thing we did was created a giant status doc, and we actually just use a Google Doc. We don't use a fancy, tool. We aren't using Jira or anything like that. We use Jira for some web dev stuff, but for just like running the department, we use just a simple status doc with lots of tabs. Everybody's got a department, and everything goes on the marketing status doc, every request, because we get requests from all different types of people and different departments. Like, that is one of the coolest things about working for a winery, especially not a big, huge corporate winery. We're a mid-sized family-owned winery. There's not a lot of corporate tape. And so we have, requests coming in from tasting rooms that need a new order form or a flyer for something that they want to stuff in a bag. We have requests from, one of the brand directors who wants to go into wholesale and do a wine dinner. We've got requests from investors. We've got requests, just from all different angles and sides of the business. And so because of that, we get requests in a very non-formulaic fashion that can, maybe it's a piece of a request or an idea that somebody has. And so we put everything on the status doc, and then we go through it once a week, and we have color coding and all kinds of kind of ways to organize everything so that we can give people on our teams just simple tasks. And I think one of the things that has been so beneficial about being in-house is that we understand the needs of the business. And so we can say that flyer can wait, this can't, and we can just kind of rework everything. It's like a game of Tetris all the time to make sure that everybody is using their time in the most optimal way and everything is getting done.
There's only so much time. And as far as like what, so you've got the three brands. How large is your team that's managing these three brands?
Yeah, the marketing team is 8. And then our econ team has 3 people on it. So between all of them, we've got 11.
That's a pretty nice size for an agency. For a smaller winery, or for a winery that maybe only has one brand, what's the one marketing component that you would urge them to keep in-house?
Ooh, good question. Yeah, well, I'll first say that we were all in-house, and then a few years ago we started actually siphoning some things off because we got to a size that we felt like we could actually work with some agencies. So we've done a little bit of that. For example, our media buying. We now have an agency do the media buying. We do all the creative work, but the buying is done by an agency. So I think the creative work is probably the one thing that you want to keep in-house, because your brand voice more than anybody else. And you still have to do all of the work that is brand guidelines and key messaging, and kind of all of that work still has to be done, because that has to be disseminated out to everybody who's using it within the organization. So you still have to do that, but you know it so well that you can break your own rules, and you just
which rules to break that'll actually move it forward in the correct way.
For sure. The other component, I think, which is not really like a specific area or discipline within marketing, but just a technologist. Like, I think having somebody who understands technology is good at learning about emerging technology and solving problems with technology is just so helpful. They can jump in and do like coding. They can go find something that is, going to be a plug-in solution. I can't tell you how many tools we use. For example, we're having our cab cook-off next week, and we needed to build a voting system for voting for the winner. And so we're going to use a type form. So just having somebody who's willing to go out there and scour the internet for all the different cool technical, products out there that could help solve your problems and make it a little bit easier for like a small fee. Type form is, I don't remember how much it costs, but it's, under $100. It's like a simple solution to really add a little polish, and help your execution along.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I like the talking about, even if you have, like, you could be the biggest agency in the United States, you're still going to have one aspect that's so specialized that makes sense to outsource it. And I think you hit the nail on the head with the media buying. And maybe PR, because it's all about connections. It's very hard to have that completely in-house.
Yeah. No, I understand that too. We do our PR in-house, but we've got a awesome person who's been with us for a long time and has spent a lot of time building connections and relationships. But on the media side, I just feel like you just can't you can't replicate the power of buying for all of your clients, right? So an agency, like we as one little company, we only have so much buying power, but an agency is representing tons of clients, and when they go talk to a publication, they've got the buying power of everybody. And it may not be that everybody on their roster is going to buy an ad in town and country, but they're going to be buying in other parts of the media portfolio. And so it just seems like it's a much more effective way, especially if you can get to a level of media spend that is, worth engaging with an agency.
Sure. What's some of the better, where are you finding success right now in your media buying?
Well, not Facebook. I don't know if you know about the iOS update last year, but it really kind of twisted the way that we find people who are interested in wine. Media buying for fine wine is really tough because you don't want to have a lot of waste in your media buying. You want to try to find people who are really interested in fine wine, and that could be somebody who looks like me, or it could be somebody who looks totally different, because wine is so unique and so many different types of people love wine. So anyway, it's a little bit of a challenge to prospect. I think where we find a lot of success with media buying is in retargeting, and is in talking to people who are already our customers and getting them to repurchase. So bringing people into the brand, we find that that's easier to do through brick and mortars and through tasting experiences where they have that amazing brand experience. But then the digital ad space is much more effective for talking to people who already know about us and keeping us top of mind, and keeping key wines that we want to make sure we're focusing on top of mind for people.
Sure. Speaking about top of mind, and your retargeting, now on your website, are you doing anything with like personalization based on talk to me about that.
Yeah, so there are a number of different tools that you can use for website personalization, and they're so good for so many things. The first thing is just like making simple changes to your site that you don't want to work with a coder or do heavy lifting on coding. The next thing would be like just optimizing the site, like making this button green because green means go, versus making this button red, right? Like little tweaks here and there to kind of optimize the customer journey, maybe the cart experience. And then the next thing is that we're really starting to explore is really changing the site for your relationship with us as a brand. So are you a member? Does that mean you see a different homepage? do you live, in a cold state or a hot state? Maybe we're highlighting, white wines, if you're in Texas or Florida right now, and we're still highlighting reds if you're, in New York. So really kind of shifting the whole site experience depending on your relationship with us. And the best example of that would be the membership experience.
So once you log in, then you've got your whole database, and you've got all the ability to do the personalization. I'd say one of the keys to personalization is that you want to make it look like it's not personalized. Otherwise, it starts to look creepy. But if you don't know, and you're getting a white wine and they're in a warm state or whatnot, it builds that resonance. It builds that affinity.
Yeah, I mean, I think nobody wants to creep anybody out, and no, we don't want to be creepy. We just want to give you the best possible experience and give you content that is interesting and relevant. And so I think the goal is just to give you content that is going to resonate with you and that is going to be helpful. If we're showing you a whole bunch of stuff that you're not interested in, and you've demonstrated that, then that's not a brand you want to be part of.
Yeah, no, for sure. And talking about customer experiences, over the 7-8 years you've been with Hall, how have the experiences evolved, both in person and online?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't think you can underestimate the experience that everybody had through the pandemic. I think that really shifted a lot of people's relationships with brands that they are members of. And had an existing relationship with. I think our relationship with customers has gotten more sophisticated over time. We do a lot of custom work on our site, and kind of all of the systems that we use are all fairly custom. We don't use like an all-inclusive wine system because we want to be able to make whatever we want. We want to be able to create programs that are going to resonate with people, and some of that stuff we haven't even thought up yet, So I think over time it's really evolved. In my second year here, the Halls published a book. And so I think that was a really cool marketing tool, actually. I don't think that's why they did it. They just wanted to tell their story. But people like have a really in-depth relationship with us if they've read that whole book. And then they get to meet Catherine, and then it just really has evolved their relationship to a kind of a really neat level. We've had members who've been part of our membership for 10 15 years, and so as our membership has grown and as time has gone on, we've gotten more and more of those amazing relationships. And I'm so excited that we get to start seeing people again with, as I mentioned, the Cab Cook-Off. We're all going to be, together at the winery. We're going to be seeing so many old friends that we haven't seen. We haven't had that event for 2 years. The last time was
Tell me about this Cab Cook-Off. It sounds fascinating.
Oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. Someday I would love to attend it as just as a guest.
Yes.
But it's really fun. It's at the winery, which is at the St. Helena Winery, the Hall St. Helena Winery, and it's a beautiful campus. And what we do is we have, I think it's this year, it's 12 chefs from different areas, different restaurants in the Bay Area in California, and they all come in, and their goal is to create the best dish, a small dish that pairs with our Cabernet. And they do it on behalf of a charity. So they get to pick a charity to like fight for. So it's super cool. All the charities are there. All the chefs are there. All the people are there. Everybody gets to vote. And then we have a judging panel. So there's lots of winners. Everybody gets to win something. And it's just so fun. And it's a great opportunity to, soak up some Napa sunshine and eat good food and drink good wine.
Oh, that's fantastic. And is this a members only one, or is this something where people buy tickets to it for the charity event?
Yeah, anybody can buy tickets to it. Members definitely buy lots and lots of tickets. And we let them know about it, the dates first, but it sells out every year. So it's very popular. And we've been doing it for many, many years. So people are, repeat visitors.
I love the idea of well, you've been doing it for a long time, but I really love the idea of wineries taking it just beyond just the pickup party or just beyond and having an actual event and then combining it with the, doing social good and
Yeah.
becoming a charity event. And that helps kind of proclaim the message and just expand the brand. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm
It's
always
been
happy to see wineries do that.
Yeah, it's really neat to get to meet all of these different charities.
Mhm.
We've also been able to create long-standing relationships with these charities over the years because we've had several repeat charity guests and
Mhm.
repeat chefs, and so it's just cool to be connected with your community. And as I said before, membership is all about crafting this community around the love of wine and finding people who are interested in similar things.
Yeah. So for a winery that may not have the history of Hall or the means to have 12 chefs together, what advice would you give a winery, a smaller winery that wants to kind of start to jump into these more personalized experiences?
Yeah, I think um, I think you're absolutely right. You have to go beyond just a pickup party. So you need to have something that's unique and
Mhm.
special. And I think that you also need to make sure that you've got a membership element. You may want to use this event as a prospecting tool to bring people to your brand, but if
Mhm.
you can find some way, whether it's a discount for the members or you give them first access, or maybe there's a members area, or some kind of badge that the member gets to wear. You really want to exalt your members and make sure they feel special
Sure.
and have something that kind of identifies them as unique and special to you as a brand.
Oh yeah. No, for sure. Talking about events. I was talking with Tyler and Michelle Bredesen of Bold North Cellars. They're up in Minnesota, and
Wow.
they're Alexandria, Minnesota. And every year in September, they do this grape stomp competition. So you can have the fine wines, but you can also just have fun. And they get about 15,000 people in for this grape stomping, and you buy tickets. 40, I think it's $40 for and then they met first one to fill up a gallon worth of juice wins, and then they have different levels. And it, to me, it was just sounded fascinating and a great way to kind of go beyond just the wine and create like an experience. And then they have food trucks and whatnot. But I'm always curious to see how wineries take that unique angle.
Yeah, I am always amazed at our team's ability to come up with creative ideas for events that we've been doing for years and years and years.
Mhm.
So, Cat Cook Off we've done every year, except for the last two, of course, due to the COVID. But every year we find some way to come up with something new or fresh, whether it's bringing in some new talents or creating some new art piece that people can interact with. I think it's just really important for you to, as I said, create an experience, create something for people to do that's tangible, that they'll remember. And I
Mhm.
think also you can't underestimate the power of Instagrammable moments, right? To
Sure.
use those events to spread your brand and create a moment on social media, you know, as well.
Absolutely. You talk about the history and all the events that happen year after year. Going forward, where do you see wineries and Hall family wines going forward in the next 7 years? Where do you see this customer journey evolving?
Oh, let's see. I mean, I think that we love the brick and mortar experience. And so I think we
Mhm.
would love to continue to invite people in to experience our wines in person,
Mhm.
and start their relationship with us that way. So I could see some growth in that regard. Um, and then, I think that we haven't quite cracked the virtual interaction. I want to
Mhm.
continue to work on that more. As I mentioned, we were doing the virtual tastings
Mhm.
a couple times a year, and now
Were you
we're
doing that
going
before the pandemic?
we did it occasionally,
Okay.
not with any regularity. We do an event, a week-long event in the middle of summer,
Mhm.
called Member Appreciation Week. And so we
Mhm.
were always doing it for Member Appreciation Week. And we always were trying to think of ways to connect with people um, who don't live near the winery, but are
Mhm.
also, huge fans. And so we always did it during that period of time. Um, and so we're trying to amp that up a little bit more. But I'm really interested to see what happens with the metaverse and just kind
Yes.
of as technology goes and changes and consumers adopt new ways of connecting with brands, maybe something really cool will come out, for wine, that we could capitalize there. But for now, I don't think there's anything better than being in person with people and getting to connect with people in person.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah, maybe that means we go on the road. Maybe we, and we have done that in the past. But I definitely think that we're all craving in-person connections right now.
Absolutely.
And so I'm hopeful that we'll get to kind of explore that a little bit more, and then maybe find technology that helps us connect virtually a little more closely.
I agree that and you brought it up. So where do you see wine fitting into the metaverse?
Oh, I do not know. We just had my ecom director just went to a conference, and it was all the rage all over, and so I had to have him talk me through it, and we were looking at it, and definitely starting to explore. I think it's going to be a very long time for us personally. Our consumer does not typically, they're not early adopters.
Well, the funny thing about wines or wineries is they're probably the slowest to embrace technology, and you guys are on the forefront. And so I do see it being a slow crawl into the metaverse, but I do see a fitting for it. I'm always curious to see how people's visions are. And
yeah,
sort of
I don't
putting
know
at the
exactly what
forefront.
it will be. I mean, I think one of the most amazing pieces of our brands and wine brands in general are the connection to the vineyard. Um, it's a really strong piece of the Walt branding in particular. For our Walt branding, it's 1,000 miles of Pinot Noir. We talk about the vineyard sites. We really specialize in single vineyard Pinots. And so if there's a way to transport people to that vineyard to really get a sense of the individual places in time and space that are captured in this bottle, through the metaverse, I mean, I think
Oh,
that is definitely worth exploring. And I would love to transport everybody, up to Willamette and Dick Shea's vineyard up there, or down to Rosella's, just and being able to do that all from the comfort of your home in a single sitting. I could see really interesting applications for it, even for in-person experiences at the winery, because those vineyards are so far apart, right?
sure.
So I don't know. There could be something really cool there.
I like that idea of stepping up the virtual beyond just kind of a 2D vision of people talking, or in the pandemic, having the winemaker on, walking people through the wines, but leveling up that experience where people are actually immersed into the wine. And you can do that through all the visuals. And great point on taking the tour of the vineyards, being there, making it a little more immersive. I do see that direction.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not sure. It's a whole new world for sure.
Absolutely. So, gosh, as we're kind of wrapping down here, I always like to ask something. What have you been reading lately?
So I'm a big reader. I read not only to my kids all the time, but for myself. And right now I'm reading Daisy Jones and the Six, which is a novel that is about a rock band. And it is written in a way that is kind of as though a documentary was transcribed. So it's a little bit different, but it's been really fun to read, and I'm about halfway through it. So looking forward to finishing that soon.
That sounds fantastic. Who's the author?
Oh gosh, I have to pull it up.
Oh, sorry.
She's got three names. She's got three names.
Daisy
And now I
Jones.
can't remember her name, but she's pretty. Taylor Jenkins Reid, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sounds like a good. Sounds like a good book. What about
Yeah.
business? What's the last business book you read?
Oh, The Undoing Project.
Oh, tell me what the Undoing Project.
Yeah, I actually think I have it here somewhere. Yeah, it's by the gentleman who did The Big Short.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's all about understanding your biases and using kind of science to pull them back, and not have any biases. And so, as it's applied to marketing or business decisions, it just kind of studies our natural biases.
oh, that's fascinating. I'm going to pick that one up.
Yeah, it's cool.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for joining us today. Where can people find out more about you and Hall Family of Wines?
Hallwines.com.
Always.
My LinkedIn. I don't have my own site, so.
Sounds good, Emily. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, you too. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Legends Behind the Craft podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.